Well, welcome to the Empowered to Connect podcast, where we come together to discuss a healing-centered approach to engagement and well-being for ourselves, our families, and our communities. I'm JD Wilson, and I'm your host. And today on the show, Mo and Tona Ottinger walk us through the importance and the practicality behind building in traditions, routines, and rituals with your family. So we all are big on making memories around the holidays. Each of us tend to be, and don't let me speak for you, but I'll speak for ourselves who are on the show today. We love making memories around the holidays with our families. We all talked about vivid memories that we've got from times growing up and things that we got to do and experience. What we wanted to do today was talk about a little bit of, number one, the science behind that. Why is that? Why are memories and the art of making memories of family, why is that important scientifically? Second, how do the senses and sensory experiences play into that? We're also going to cover just the importance of ritual, routine, and tradition in your family rhythms. As with everything we always talk about, it will not be prescriptive. This is not the A, B, and C of exactly how to do that, but we do want to give you some very practical ideas and tips for you to be able to tailor these things and take these things and make them your own within your own family context. And so this is, I think, one of the best episodes we've ever recorded around holiday content, and I'm super excited for you guys to listen to it today. So without any further ado, here's Mo, Tona, and myself talking about making memories. Well, Mo and Tona Ottinger are with me today, and we're going to talk about the importance of making memories and connection and play during the holidays with our kids. And so this is something that is near and dear to all of our hearts in kind of unique ways. And so we wanted to talk today about this because on the front end of sort of the holiday season, we can get wrapped up in all of the busyness, and it's cliche to talk about the hustle and bustle, but it's like that for a reason. Like can be a stressful time of year where we tend to push off the things that matter and reprioritize in an unhealthy way our lives. And so, guys, before we kind of jump into the practical side of making memories with our kids and establishing traditions and all that, why don't we explain sort of the big picture of how making memories ties in with connection? Tona, do you want to talk through that for a minute?
Yeah, sure. We've talked about this on other episodes, so we could always go back and hit play on some of those others. But what I immediately think of is just the benefit of routines and rituals, and using those routines and rituals and play, like really those three things: routines, rituals, and play are all foundational connecting practices in building a strong foundation of trust and relationship. And when those things are present in a parent-child relationship, it is a huge win for felt safety and connection, and a child feeling seen and safe and having the ability to know what to expect. Routines, rituals, and play. And in this case, we would be thinking about doing those under the idea of memory making at the holidays. It builds into the child a sense of family culture. This is the culture of our family, and these are the things that we do, and this is who we are. I mean, those are foundational hallmarks of secure attachment. I belong in this family culture. I'm part of this family culture, and this family culture has a dependability and a rhythm to it. And the holidays are just the perfect time. They're always going to come back around. And, I don't want to go too far ahead of even some of the topics today, but I will just say this off the bat. Some of you might be just feeling like, I can't even listen to this episode. I'm just going to turn it off because I feel overwhelmed and there's too much going on, and thinking about making memories and putting rituals into place feels like another task to do. And maybe my encouragement would be to think about this conversation from the perspective of how can I build in play and rhythm and routine and memory making into the tasks that we already have to do. And early on, years and years ago, when we, didn't have as many kids and I wasn't working and I was home all the time, I went absolutely overboard. Like if there was something you could do and call it a holiday memory, I was doing it. Like all the children had their own aprons from Pottery Barn that were monogrammed with their names. And by golly, they were wearing those. And we were making Christmas cookies for the 45th time in the kitchen that year. I mean, I had my list of, it was 30, 40 activities deep. I mean, it was a lot, y'all. I was a lot. I'm always a lot. I was a little extra. And, just a couple of decades into parenting, I can say it's not entirely, there is some component to actually doing the things that make the memory. There is a component to that, but it's a little bit more nuanced than that. And it doesn't mean you have to get busier. So it doesn't mean you have to get busier. It takes a little intentionality and a mindset shift. So that's kind of my initial thoughts.
Well, and if I jump in, I think that's a great point in that, I get overwhelmed when I start thinking about, making memories and all the things we have to do around the holidays, right? It's okay. We've got to get new pajamas. Oh, we've got to do a night where we drive around and see the lights, and we've got to have hot chocolate, and we've got to all of a sudden it just becomes a massive, overwhelming list. And I know for me, there were seasons that my focus was on the list. If I'm on, tonight we're all getting in the car, we're all drinking hot chocolate, and we're going to see these lights. This is the plan. And,
Hey, Mo, do you remember the Christmas that we also would go get donuts, by the way? We would do hot chocolate.
One year we got milkshakes and decided to take the dog, and one of the kids tripped and spilled a milkshake on our lap in the car.
In the car.
But by golly, we were there. We're all going to be in the car, and it's
with our Christmas pajamas on, with the dog and the milkshake.
Of course.
So
everyone's going to be happy.
Yeah,
yes,
that's
they
right.
are.
That's
by
right.
golly, except for me and except for us, because we are not happy with that.
Right.
So I mean, you said nuance. You used the word nuance. I would say, I think as we talk through some things, just for parents to think through, to understand their family, the rhythm of their family, their children, the needs of their children, whatever that looks like, guests coming to visit, grandparents, aunties, uncles, all that sort of thing. What's the flow of the holidays, managing their expectations, because, there's also this, as a parent, I really want to do well. I want to make memories. I have the expectation that I'm going to be the dad, and I'm going to own the holidays. I'm going to be that dad. I'm not going to be the deadbeat dad. I'm going to own the holidays.
Right.
And then there's this expectation that you're going to own the holidays and your kids are going to love everything. And there is this nuance. And Tona's laughing because
I just had a visual of you thinking you're Clark Griswold or something. Momo's up in the house being all Clark Griswold on us.
Yeah. And it's so I think as we're talking, I think just everybody take a deep breath.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Yeah.
And making memories don't have to be these grandiose things.
Right.
I've just also realized this, as I now have kids that range from 9 to 21.
Yeah.
There'll be times we'll be driving somewhere or walking around the neighborhood that some of my older kids they'll just talk about something, a memory they had. And it's not always these big grandiose things, that happened. This well orchestrated plan, all in matching outfits. But
that did make a really good picture for Instagram.
How they love that.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the matching outfits did give me a good picture for Instagram, although they may not remember it as a great memory.
Sure. Well, and it's more important to have a picture that you can later say, look, we did all have fun.
Yeah. Something that just came to me, Mo, when you were talking, is I think memory making happens both through grandiose experiences. So there is something to be true of that. Your kids, you go do something really extravagant and grand, and you're going to lay into them memory. That's going to happen. They're going to go to Disney, or they're going to go on that trip, or they're going to go to the beach, or they're going to have, the best Christmas present they ever wanted is going to show up under the tree. And that is going to lay in important memory. I really am a huge believer in that, but it doesn't only happen in that way. Like memory making happens again in that rhythm that happens, like the day in, the day out, the bedtime, the what do we do at night, do we watch Christmas movies? Like, I mean, we would be more than happy to tell you guys some of what our holiday traditions are. And even just some of them cost money and some of them don't, right. But they are the things that we have found as a family are the ones that we are going to prioritize. Like if Mark and I are going to add some things to our task list, they're going to be very intentional, and they're going to bring all of us shared joy and delight. The things that Mark and I may have wished that we could do, this is about the expectations piece. Like maybe those weren't the right things for our kids. Mm-hmm. And so we needed to be flexible, and we needed to think again, this is a moment to sort of circle up the Ottinger family and figure out what's our family culture, what are our values, and what works for us. Yeah. And I am certain that's really different than even you guys, JD. Like what works for the Wilsons is not what works for the Ottingers, and is not what works for any of our listeners. Like it's about having the mindset and the intentionality and understanding the value, which I think is maybe harks back to your first question. Like, why are we even having this conversation? Because we fundamentally believe that play and memory making and routines and rituals are really healthy for our children. Yeah. And they do, it's almost like I have a little visual sometimes of those patterns ground their little feet to the ground. Mm-hmm. It helps them know where they belong in the world. Like, oh, I belong here. Yeah. This is my place. And I can know what's coming. And it's the things that don't take them by surprise. Yeah. Especially our kids who've experienced transition or trauma, they need to know what's coming, and setting those routines and rhythms and traditions into place help them have this sense of belonging that are magical. I mean, I love it. I am a holiday guru. I love it so very much. Thus, I used to do the monogrammed aprons. By the way, nobody in my house wears those anymore. I found an old tub of Christmas when Mo brought down the Christmas bins from the attic a couple weeks ago. And I'm not going to talk about how many of them there were. Right. When he brought them down, and I was popping them open, and it must have been one we haven't opened in forever. And it was all the 4 older kids' little aprons with their names monogrammed on them. And I had this sense of oh, I never got these from my younger kids. And I was thinking, can I take out, with the seam ripper, some of these monograms and our younger kids' names on them? And I'm Tona, there's a reason that was not your best plan. Nobody liked the aprons. Anyway, I digress.
Well, we talk about wanting to be.
Are we going to talk about it?
Are we talking about what?
Are we going to talk about how we have 10 Christmas trees in our house this year? Are we going to talk about that?
Well, no, that's not part of this episode. No.
Oh man. Well, so I think right. in the categories of things that are not part of this episode, I think we all think of as we're going into the holidays. You mentioned you're wanting to be Clark Griswold, and when we say that, we usually mean that as we're going to own Christmas. And the actual movie, Cousin Eddie shows up and ruins everything, right? Ruins all of his plans. I have never felt more Clark Griswold in my entire life than, and just real life moment, one of our kids, we got a phone call from school. One of our kids tested positive for COVID the other day. And Christmas is our favorite. It is the Wilsons' favorite holiday season. We love, all the things y'all are talking about, driving around and giving irrational amounts of sugar to our kids and looking at Christmas lights and going downtown to tree lightings and doing, Christmas concerts and all that. We love all the Christmas things. And so, one of our favorite weekends is coming up, and we now are all quarantined together. And so I want to like also interject that sometimes Cousin Eddie shows up at the worst possible time. And you have to realize that you got to stay flexible. And while that is naturally something that I do rather easily, like I am a pretty flexible person. I am, I love spontaneity. I love doing things, off the cuff or spur of the moment. It is also an art as a parent to be able to hold loosely these things that we really, really want to emphasize and do during, for example, a holiday season. And also remember that sometimes, like you said, the memories are in the grandiose things. And sometimes those memories are in, oh my gosh, there's milkshake all over the dog. One of us got sick and we had to stay inside the entire time. And you got to figure out how to pivot during those points and still make memories. And so last night, in order for us to spend some time hanging out with this kid who is quarantined upstairs all by themselves, they came out on the roof, and we are normally not, letting children hang out on our roof, but this was extenuating circumstances, and I was there to catch them if they fell. But this kid in particular walked outside, and my wife said, "Hey, throw the basketball up there." So we throw the basketball up, and it became a dude perfect showdown of this kid chucking basketballs off the roof. And by the way, we might have a rookie of the year situation where like an unforeseen sickness all of a sudden makes this kid a basketball superstar, because I think we hit 7 shots last night off the roof, like from behind the basketball goal.
Oh, that's so fun, JD.
But it was fun. Everybody's cheering and like having fun with it. And we have a perfect slow-mo video of it. And so it doesn't make it any better to have COVID. And we're so grateful that, there's not symptoms attached. And so far this kid feels fine and all that. But it's going to force us this next couple of days to have different plans. Like we got a different situation right now than we normally have. And so in those situations, and I think for some of us, that can be situational in like a sickness or illness or a travel ban or whatever. It sometimes can also be you're a new young family establishing, and maybe your kids have a different history than you have. And all of a sudden you're realizing, oh gosh, like we went to this tree lighting and everything blew up and this kid's losing their minds the entire time. We might not can do tree lightings as a family. How else can we pivot to do that? So I think everything we said in the setup to this is really important. It also, guys, like and we talk about this all the time. There's just no way to escape that. Like we've got to parent with our whole hearts and engage and be present with our kids and be there, or the stuff we do doesn't matter. Right? So there can be grandiose plans and really fun stuff and cool Instagram pictures, and we can all hate each other because we're all being terrible about it,
No. JD, when you say that, it makes me think about just the beauty of like embracing spontaneity. So I think that's why I said it's like nuanced, right? It's this little dance between being intentional and having a plan, which we need, and the structure. Like, routines and rhythms are part of the structure of your family.
Right.
So how do you balance structure and nurture in memory making? And it means that like we do need to know, like kind of on the calendar, there needs to be a couple of nights that are available for the possibility of, we'll use the same example. Like we could maybe go, look at Christmas lights in our PJs with our hot chocolate and donuts and no dogs on Wednesday night or Saturday night this week.
Yeah.
So Mo and I've talked, and we know that's something that we want to try to do this week. And we have a couple of nights that we know that we could do that. And then we're going to be flexible and spontaneous based on how our children are doing that evening.
Yeah.
And it might be dinner time and everybody seems to be in a pretty good headspace and nobody's got major homework. And I can look at him and be like, hey, you want to go? And it feels spontaneous.
Right.
But we knew that we could have done it tonight or Saturday night.
Yep.
So I think there's that little dance between being intentional and flexible and spontaneous. And you've got, that is just like necessary for emotional, spiritual, and family well-being. Totally. Like if you can't find that rhythm, then there is going to be pretty significant disappointment and I think relational ruptures that aren't necessary.
Totally.
Yeah. Mo, did you have something on
Well,
your
I was
mind?
just going to say this is going to sound, I don't know, I don't even know the word, but like you've got to plan spontaneity. Like you got to plan your flexibility. You've got to. I just encourage parents that that there's opportunities over the next month that realistically you could do something every night. And so is that realistic? What, again, it's being attuned to your children and understanding your family and navigating all of that. And even navigating some expectations out of your immediate family, right? Like maybe the grandparents have some expectations. And so you've got to factor in all these things.
Yes.
And then, okay, for my little group, my kiddos and spouse, and that's under my roof, how do I plan accordingly and be attuned to what each child needs? I mean, expectation. I mean, we have 6 kids that go a broad, 21 down to 9, and each of those needs something different. Yeah. And so, even the expectation of all 8 of us going out to doing something together, if I'm honest, that would be an expectation that I would have years ago. Now it's not. That's not. My goal is, again, to connect, going back to what you were talking about, to connect with each child.
Yeah.
And if that means last night at 9:00, one of my kids is like, "Hey, Dad, can we go get a peppermint shake at Chick-fil-A?" Yes, let's go, man. And so he and I, we bam, we're out the door, and there's this moment, right? It's the holidays. Let's get this limited edition shake at 9:00 for that kid. Did I all of a sudden go wake my little ones up and then try to get everybody? No, I just connected with that one kiddo. Now, are there moments that we could get all of them? I mean, surprisingly, over Thanksgiving, they all wanted to go see a movie. First time we've gone in 2 years to the movie theater to see a movie. Of course, we bought tickets, and then when it came time to get in the car and go, one of them didn't want to go. But again, we flexed. Yeah, that's all right. So yeah, it's just being attuned to each kiddo.
Yeah, Mo, you said something that made me think of. I hadn't thought about it till you were just talking. Usually, sometime around this time, maybe about a week ago, there will be individual conversations across all of our kids. And this has been really helpful for me. Again, I can go like big and unnecessary and over the top. So it's what has been helpful for me is to have a conversation and ask each of them individually, like, what is important for you? What's something that we do that's really important for you? A memory or a tradition, and then what is something that you want to do? And is there anything that we do that causes you like undue stress or anxiety, or is something that's like not your favorite thing to do? And I'll just let them have an opportunity. And, it might be random things like, I really like that smell that the candle that you always burn at Christmas time in the kitchen. And we can talk about sensory experiences in a minute. But, one of them might say that. And one of them might be like, I do not like it when we're all in the car and we're trying to go see Christmas lights. It just makes me stressed out. I don't love that. And then somebody else might say, I really love it when we go do this or that, or when we have this experience, or when we play this game, there can be any number of answers. But if we can have those intentional conversations and let our children have voice instead of like making assumptions and like setting them up to like not enjoy what we're doing, like this is the flexibility part. If we have 6 kids and 3 of them say, I love it when we go get hot chocolate and donuts and do lights, and 2 of them say, that causes me so much stress, I do not like being piled in the car like that. And then another one's like, yeah, I'm really not into that this year. Then Mark and I can decide, okay, what's the goal? Well, okay, let's go way back. Why are we doing what we are doing? And let's keep the goal in mind.
Yes.
And if the goal is for our children to feel seen and to have fun and to set memories in, we might actually reach that goal by letting a couple of kids opt out. And and say, you know what, sweetie, why don't you just stay home and cuddle in and let's turn the fire on and maybe you guys watch a movie while we're gone. And like give them a hug and kiss. And basically they go, thanks, mom and dad did not make us go do that this year.
Right.
And that's more impactful than making them get in the car.
Yep.
So taking a temperature and letting your kids have the ability to have an individual opinion over the holidays is I just can't overstate the importance of that.
Well, you mentioned it. So why don't we begin walking toward talking about the senses and sensory systems and memory making and how those two things play together? Tona, why don't you start? And then Mo, I'd love for you to share about the article that you read later.
Yeah. I don't know that Mark and I knew that this was even a thing, that memory is, deeply connected to sensory experience. And we did not know this was a thing 20 years ago when we started parenting.
Oh, come on.
But it meant something. What's that?
Let's take credit. Yes, we were.
Oh, we totally did. We were ahead of the time.
We totally.
Yeah, totally. We did not. We did not. I just knew, this is so funny. I just knew that there was a smell that I liked at Christmas time in the holidays, a candle. It was one particular candle and I liked the smell of it. And so in order to just do what I wanted to do, I bought that candle every single holiday, the same exact candle, and would burn it in the kitchen. And I think the older kids, they were probably in there, I don't know, maybe 5, 6, 7. And I asked that question. Hey guys, what do you want to do? What's important to you separately? And like 3 of the 4 of them said, it's the Christmas smell in the kitchen. That's what I love the most. And I was like, all right, check. It's the candle. It's the candle that I felt like was extravagant, my Yankee candle that I love every holiday. And it is to them, it is Christmas. And, the longer we've gone, now the more that we've learned, it makes sense to me that those rituals and rhythms are being laid into place through the senses mostly. It's what we ate. Think about that. When you go, we just had, many of us just celebrated Thanksgiving, and you know what you want to eat at Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving isn't Thanksgiving if you don't eat that thing. Well, that's a sensory experience. So just being thoughtful about how the senses play a role in memory making can help you if you've got limited time, limited finances, and limited bandwidth. And you need a home run or 2 over the holidays and some rituals you can put into place, then I would say run to something that is a sensory experience, a smell, a cookie you always bake, something that's always at the table, the same foods, meet their sensory needs. And if you can't do anything else, I really do absolutely believe, and we have seen to be true, that most often the memories they say are the ones that are still there, 20 years into parenting, are the ones connected to something sensory.
Well, and I think what's unprompted, I feel like over the last 6 months, driving in the car or walking around the neighborhood or standing in the kitchen, one-on-one, each of our older kids have said something about how a smell takes them back to a memory. And we're not talking about holiday memory. We're not talking about cookies or whatever. One of my kiddos was smelling coffee. Well, I used to be in the coffee business years ago. So all my older kids were in the kitchen. And when they smelled the coffee brewing, they started talking about fun memories they had in our roasting facility, jumping from the big greenbacks to green. They were telling stories, and it was all about the smell. Or one of my kiddos went for a walk around the neighborhood the other day and talked about the smell in the neighborhood reminded them of when they used to go to our grandparents in Texas or something. It was so it's amazing what the sensory, we know this for us personally, but just the power of senses. And I think so. I've been reminded of that. But what was interesting this week, I came across an article, and it was helping the science behind helping your children make memories. And it talked about how all the senses sights and smells and hearing and on, what that does in the brain. And like, we know this, like my kiddos, for some, just if I take school, for example, if we ask one of my kiddos to sit down and they've got to memorize memorize some spelling, they've got a test on Friday. We have found with one of my kiddos that if they just sat down at the kitchen and had to memorize those spelling words, they would not do well. We've got to add some sensory things to them, right? Like we got to get their body moving. We got to get them writing them out. We got to get them, they can be on the basketball court, spelling them out while they shoot. They can, like, there's different things that we do with that child to help ingrain them in their brain, right? To do that. And what was interesting reading this article about the science of, like, to help our children make deep, lasting memories. I mean, it goes through, we've got to engage the senses. And the title of the article is like the science of making memories. And I think all of our listeners, all of us, that's true. Like, we can talk about things and we remember going to our grandparents and the smell of our grandparents' house. We can remember being in the fields at my uncle's, and like all those things. It just comes back to sensory.
I feel, hearing you say that, Mo, I'm thinking about, I don't know if any of our listeners are like, oh, I haven't been doing this well. Maybe my kids are in middle school or whatever age range your kids might be, high school. Oh, I haven't done this well. I think maybe my encouragement would be like, it's never too late to start buying the same candle year after year. I mean, it can literally be that simple. Like, it's never too late to say, hey, we all love, Mo and one of our kids makes an apple pie every Thanksgiving, and they just have been doing it for like a decade, and it's their thing. It's never too late to start a new rhythm and ritual and tradition. It's never too late. It doesn't matter how old your kids are. And, if you've got an older kid, I was thinking about like a sensory experience. What if you've got an older daughter and you haven't been doing something? Maybe you could start a yearly trip to the nail salon where you guys go and get a pedicure and a manicure and a special Christmas manicure. And that's something that you do year after year. That can go far into adulthood. So it does not, these things don't happen on accident. That's maybe my biggest encouragement.
Yes,
they don't have to take a ton of capacity or money, but they do take intentionality.
Yeah.
And let some other things go if you need to, and just find one or two things that you can say, we will start doing this from here on out. This I believe I can start and maintain, and it can become something that is a rhythm, and the kids can expect it. And I think it's just the importance of that can't be overstated. It can't be overstated.
Well, as we start to kind of wrap up here and head for home, so to speak, any last thoughts on this as we wrap up, whether it's on making memories or play or sensory or any of that?
I mean, I'm tempted to like go through a list of all the wonderful, fun things that we do because they make me so happy. So like in closing, I want to be like, oh, you could do this and you could do this, and like give our listeners like a list of like 10 things they could do. But I'm hesitating to do that, JD, because I think that it's not about doing the thing that the Ottingers do. Like that's actually the exact wrong thing. I'm fighting a temptation because I like to brainstorm and like share fun ideas.
Right.
But I do want to say out loud, I'm biting my tongue and I'm opting not to do that.
Yeah.
Because I really think it's about just stepping back and going, what do we need? Mm-hmm. Like, what does our family need? What do I need? And like, if there's something that you need, like I was the one that needed that candle every year. Like, what do you need? And take care of yourself through a tradition and ritual while also creating a family culture of play and memory making. So I'm not going to give a list of ideas because we all know them, and
Sure.
just find them. Find the one or two that are right, that bring you some joy, hopefully bring your kids some joy, and let some people opt out.
Yep.
Be flexible.
And I think if I had a closing, just thinking through, for years, just as a dad, I worked in, retail. And so December was like,
just
I was gone
Yeah.
early and I was home really late. And just going back to the intentional and prioritizing, like the reality of a work schedule for you and the busy and the crazy of just maybe life right now, you may not have the flexibility, for whatever reason. So just, again, don't forget the goal is connection with your child, and how can you find those moments to connect, and don't lose sight of that during this season. And and in the little and the big, whatever you can do, connect.
That's great. That's great. Well, guys, we appreciate it so much. And we'll link that article that Mo referenced in the show notes in case you want to read it for yourself. And then if you have the internet, I would encourage you, if you need brainstorming, to Google. There are going to be
so many ideas,
billion ideas. And that will allow you probably the inspiration you need to think about, well, we couldn't do it in this way. Maybe we could do it in this way. So
I love that.
Happy holidays to everybody out there. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week. Well, hopefully that episode was as helpful for you as it was for us. It was just a great reminder. And Mo and Tona are so good in this area, specifically with their family, and began to watch them from a distance and kind of see this happen. I was excited for them to talk about it and share those things with the world. So we've got one more live episode, one more new episode coming up this season. So we'll have our last episode of the season airing next week, and then we'll be airing a few of our favorites, kind of the greatest hits, so to speak, over the next couple weeks, and we'll return in January with all new episodes. We've also got some new content coming, new parenting training courses. I mean, we've got a lot scheduled for 2022, and we are so excited to be able to start talking about it. It's been under wraps for so long, and we've been working on it kind of behind the scenes. You may have heard us reference it here or there, but it is coming down the pipe in 2022, and we're so excited to bring it to you. And so for Mo and Tona Ottinger, for the whole team at ETC, for Kyle Wright, who edits and engineers all of our audio, and for Tad Jewett, the creator of the music behind the Empowered to Connect podcast, I'm JD Wilson, and we will see you next week on the Empowered to Connect podcast.